As tempting as it is to rush out and buy a cheap orbital sander, I'm soldiering on by hand, starting with P180 and working through to P320 on the cut edges. Okay, so everything's sanded and been given a rub down. Yeah, it didn't take too long, about 40 minutes or so. Sorry about that, shouldn't have done that. Anyway, I'm going to leave the dust to settle a bit, put the fan on, go and grab a coffee, and be back in 20 minutes or half an hour so that we can start spraying on some primer. Whew. So with the workshop converted into a spray booth, I'm using an off-the-shelf Leyland primer undercoat thinned by about 20%. Then denibbed and top-coated with a Leyland eggshell finish, again thinned down. And with everything nice and dry, I'm scuffing the edges of the butt with a little abrasive. Then putting everything together with dowels and glue, clamping it up tightly with a square in one corner and using offcuts of MDF to protect the paint. Okay, not the most exciting glue ups to watch, but well, it's not from your end. But that's gone together tolerably well. We'll leave that for a while, let the glue set, then we get it out of the clamps and make sure that the shells fit and that they don't wobble. But otherwise, apart from fitting the little corner plates, we're pretty much sorted. Okay, so the last thing I need to do is to fit these little corner mounting plates into the corners, and I forgot to spray them, so hand painted them yesterday. Turned out really nicely. And I'm going to use a little Katsu trim router for this, simply because it's pretty much the cheapest router you can get. Now, you'll be shocked to learn this fence isn't supplied as standard. This is something, a little piece of 4x2 I've just screwed onto the base there with wood screws, and we're just going to use that as a steadying hand just to route the corners out, and then we can clean those up with a cheap chisel. That's what we'll do now. We'll go around just the top and bottom four corners, and then we get the plates screwed in place. As these little trim routers have a fixed base, I'm having to manual plunge to start and stop the cut. So I'm taking it very slow and steady, as I don't want to mess up everything I've done so far. Then I can square up the corners with a chisel. And fit the corner plates, first using them as a template to drill the pilot holes. And then fixing them down with screws. And with the corner plates fitted, it's time to set it upright and fit the shelves. And there we are, that's pretty much that. Full set of shelves, made for a client, an actual job, but made with some of the cheapest tools I own, because we're trying to get the cost of the tools out of the price of the job. Have I succeeded? Let's see, I'll need to crunch some numbers, get back to you in a minute, and we'll see how we did. Ooh. So, moment of truth, day of reckoning, numbers crunched. Hopefully we've got a scrolling list here of everything that I spent that appeared in the timeline of the video. The MDF, the Traxor hex key, 1400 rail, combi square, earplugs, blah, 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 all the way through to the Katsu router and the cheap chisel at the end. Things I hadn't included in that timeline are things like consumables. Now, I've lumped those in as an extra add-on at the end as a straight 50 quid, and that's principally the paint that I used for the job. But it also includes things like the corner plates, the dowels, a bit of glue, the odd screw for the corner plate, the shelf pins, all those sort of little bits and pieces. 50 quid's fairly generous for that, to be honest. So we're well covered with that. And when you total all that up together, it comes to a slightly whopping £644 and 15 pence. Now, given the purchase price, the sales price, asking price of the shelves was £745, we have actually made a profit on that, as well as getting financing all those tools, if that's what you needed to do. We actually made £100 and 85 pence on the job, as well as getting all the gear. Obviously, blowing 15 pence on a pencil was a terrible idea, otherwise we would have made 101. So I think there are two sort of takeaways from this. First and foremost, it's amazing how many little bits and pieces you need to do a little job like this. And secondly, of course, it's entirely possible to do this, provided that you're charging appropriately for your work. If you work cheaply, then you're never going to earn enough to get this gear, to be perfectly blunt. And, you know, I'm sure there are people typing angrily, £745 for a shelf, that's ridiculous. I can buy an IKEA Flodquist for 35. I'm sure you can, that's what IKEA do. They still sell standard sized bits of furniture. That's not what I do. I make very specific little bits of furniture to fit in very specific places in your home. And if that's what you want, then there's a price attached to it. If you don't want to pay it, that's fine. Plenty of people will sort you out another way. The other takeaway, of course, is just how many little bits and pieces you need to do this kind. I found myself sort of reaching automatically for some things. You know, the little hinge drilling guide that I use as a saddle square. I didn't need to use that because I've got the Barco square, but I reached for it, so we've got to allow for it. And again, the Mirox square, I just automatically reached for that when I was making the cross-cutting jig. Again, got to allow for it, but I could have easily have used the Barco square there as well. And again, there are other savings that you could have made. You don't have to buy the Titan Traxor if you can get the little one, which is in stores at the moment, I believe. You can save yourself 30 quid on that. You don't have to have the sprayer and the booth and the fans. You could have rolled it all, you know, da-di-da-di-da. You don't have to have the Festool 1400 rail. It just makes life more convenient and quicker and better to be able to do that cut in a single pass. But yeah, interesting little exercise. It's made me think more carefully about how I make things and how I build things. would the job have been better if I could have used my Domino and my LR32 guide rail for the shelf pin holes? No, it would have been a much, much, much faster. This is a morning's build, to be blunt, if that, plus the painting time. So it would have been much, much quicker to use the tools that I use. And that's why, professionals generally have quite nice bits of kit, not because they like using expensive bits of kit or because it makes them professional. It's because it's a question of time. Gets the job done quickly, and it's an appropriate use of your funds if you do that for a living. And I think we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful. I've certainly found it an interesting exercise to work under these sort of self-imposed constraints. And it's fascinating to see what you can actually make with relatively low-end equipment and simple construction techniques. If any of the gear I've used takes your fancy, there are links in the video description to everything that I've used in this build, and those are mostly affiliate links, so you'll be supporting the channel directly at no expense to yourselves. I want to give a quick shout out and say thank you to all my Patreon supporters who do support me on a monthly basis. They really do help keep the lights on here, and obviously having the lights on while you're making videos is a huge bonus. If you don't want to do the Patreon thing but would still like to support the channel, then there's also a direct donation link down in the video description as well. The best way not to miss one of my videos is to subscribe to the channel, and if you do subscribe, don't forget to hit that bell, then you'll be notified whenever I put up something new. But that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.